you're doing well, and welcome back to my channel, and a quick hello if you're here for the first time. My name is Alina and I have a channel that is all about living your best life, traveling the world, and having a lot of fun. So today I wanted to do a video that is going to give you guys kind of a mini breakdown of how I really plan for my larger international sort of trips. And of course this can be used for shorter trips as well. I do find that the longer the trip, the more pieces there are to kind of put in place. So I wanted to share with you guys how I personally prep, the things that are helpful to me, and I hope that they will be helpful to you. So the first task on hand is, of course, where are we going to go? Now I'm just going to take a wild guess that most people probably aren't as flexible as I am.
That's what she said.
As far as being okay with most destinations or being able to go away for a long period of time. But even still, I think that more people need to kind of be open to what kind of opportunities present themselves, because a lot of times it can save you a lot of money, and sometimes you might actually discover amazing destinations that you wouldn't have ever thought of in the beginning. Now, one thing I want to mention that I think I've touched on in other videos is that if budget is a concern for you, you should be very careful to not be going off just the flight price of where you want to go. You should really be considering your total trip cost, including accommodation, including how much, your average day is going to cost in that country with food, transit, attractions, all that kind of stuff. Like if I was to, let's say, fly to Vancouver, maybe that'd be like $600-700. But for me to stay in a hotel or an Airbnb in Vancouver is obviously a lot more pricey than me going to Southeast Asia or me going to Russia. And my daily expenses in Vancouver are also going to be much higher than they are in other destinations. So even though the flight might be $500-600 less, depending how much time that you're spending in that destination, your other costs can really eclipse all the money you think you're saving. So that's just one thing that I want to say right off the bat, is that make sure when you're comparing destinations to really think of the total trip cost. Now, the second point on my list is to check if I need any visas. So if you guys watched my video about my worst travel experiences, I'll float the thumbnail somewhere here. I had a terrible situation happen in the States where I didn't know I needed a transfer visa, and it was just a mess of a time and a very costly mistake at that. So even though I have a Canadian passport now and am allowed in most countries without a visa, I still prefer to just double check to make sure that my destination and transfer cities I can be in visa free, or if I do need a visa, like for Russia for example, I apply for it in plenty of time. Now, the third thing that I do is to find my accommodation. So as I mentioned in the first point, you should be taking into consideration the total cost of your trip. So I assume you already kind of got a gist of what you might be expecting to pay in the particular city or country that you're going to. Now, the first thing that I think about when it comes to accommodation in a certain kind of country is, do I know anybody in that country that may be willing to put me up, that I actually want to stay with, that I want to visit? And I kind of, go through my Rolodex of people, because I actually do have a lot of friends all over the world, and it's really nice because you can have, people to either show you around in those countries or that you can stay with. Now, my next go-to option as far as accommodation is almost always Airbnb now. I have raved about it so much here on my channel, and for those of you who don't know, I always have an Airbnb link in my description, which if you don't have an account, you can get $45 off your first stay of $90 or more. So it's basically 50% off if that was the case. Now, the fourth thing that I do to prep for a trip is to research. I know a lot of people probably would like to research a lot first before they choose a destination, but like I said before, as long as there's a few things that seem interesting in a certain kind of country and there's a good deal going on, I'm honestly interested to go everywhere. So if you're that type of person, maybe that should be your number one, but for me it's usually number four. Once I get my whole skeleton of the trip ready, then I'm ready to research. So I'm actually pretty old school. I still like to get a guidebook. I have said before, Lonely Planet is my personal favorite. I take this with me on my trip, so I always have a physical sort of reference of maps and things to see and do, so I don't have to have my phone if I don't absolutely need it. And for this trip especially, I think this will be good reading material on the many hours on the Trans-Siberian Express. So whether you want to get a guidebook, whether you just want to watch YouTube videos about the destination you want to go to, or just Google things or TripAdvisor, any of those kinds of resources are great for getting more information about your destination. Now, the fifth thing I do to prep for international travel is that I find a sublet. Now, using the trip that I'm going on soon, for example, I'm going away for a minimum of 3 months. And most likely, if things go well, I'm going to be extending to around 6. That's a very long time to pay for my apartment here in Toronto on top of the expenses that I will have on my trip. And for those of you who don't know what a sublet is, it's basically a term used for somebody living in your place temporarily. And thankfully here in Toronto, with most leasing agreements, they have to allow you to sublet your place if you're going away for a few months. So it's really a win-win for everybody, where they get to have a place that they don't have to commit to in a lease, and I'm able to take that financial burden off my back. So it is just a really great way to save money while you're traveling. Now, the sixth thing that I do to prep for travel is to put my cell phone on a vacation hold. I do think that most providers do have this service or something similar, where if you're going away for a month or two, you can just tell them that you won't need the service, and they'll usually charge you a much lower fee to keep your contract or to keep your plan still there when you return. So for example, I'm with TELUS, and now that I've paid off my phone through the 2-year contract, I am able to put my phone on a vacation freeze for up to 6 months, once a year. And what they do is they will charge just $10 per month. Now, this doesn't go for just phones. This may be available to you if you have a gym membership, let's say, or some kind of other monthly thing that you utilize in your city that might allow you to pause payments until you return. Now, my seventh tip is to notify your bank that you're leaving. So I actually called my bank yesterday to let them know that I'm going on this trip to these destinations for these dates, because that's what I've always had to do in the past, to not have my cards frozen when I arrive at that destination and try and make a purchase. I had one particular incident that was actually pretty bad, and this was even when I told them that I was traveling to these countries, so it shouldn't have happened, but it did, where I basically flew into Tokyo and I was leasing an apartment, and it was already like pretty late at night, and I go to pay for my first month's rent on my credit card, and it doesn't work.
You pay you! I worked too hard.
Can I just get 2 more weeks?
I want my money.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that's odd. Let me just, go down the street and I'll take out, $1,000 on my debit card. Go down to an ATM. My bank card is frozen as well and wouldn't let me take it out.
Why?
And yeah, that was just not fun, because I only had, a couple $100 on me. And yeah, thankfully I was able to get through to Visa at the weird hour that we were in Tokyo, and they unlocked my cards. Chances are in your favor if you at least tell your bank that you're going to these destinations, that it's less likely that you will have some kind of freeze on your cards, but that doesn't mean that it might not still happen. So that's just a precaution that I still want to make, even though they say, oh, it's fine, you can be anywhere in the world, and we still have our protection services without you saying anything.
Sure, Jan.
I just prefer to let them know. Now, my 8th tip of how I prep for international travel is to give my friends and family my travel itinerary. Now, this is actually a tip that I really don't hear a lot of people talk about, which I find kind of strange because if, heaven forbid, something serious happened, it would be very helpful for your friends and family to, oh, this is getting dark, to, pass on to some kind of, police officers or whoever that this is, the flight number that you had, or this is the hotel that you're planning on staying at, or this is the contact that you have in this city that you're staying with. I think it's just a really great safety precaution on many levels, and just a good way for people to be able to keep track of you if you ever needed any kind of help. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. I think that planning a big trip can definitely be a bit intimidating, and there are quite a few things to keep in mind, but this is basically the main points that I find are essential for when I'm planning my trip. I even make a sort of checklist of the things that I need to do before I go, a detailed packing list, obviously, which we will get into as I get closer to my departure date. But yeah, it's just a really great way to stay organized and make sure that you don't miss anything and have everything in order before you go, so you're not stressing on your trip. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, I would highly recommend that you follow me on Instagram, because that is basically the place where I post, well, almost every day, and a lot of stuff that doesn't make it into my longer videos here on YouTube, and especially when I'm going to be traveling and seeing all these new places, a lot of content will be on my Instagram, not on my YouTube. So make sure you're following me on there. And if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. It would mean so very much to me to have you guys join my little family here, and hit the notification bell so you guys stay updated when I post a new video. But other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Keep being your own kind of beautiful, and I will see you soon. Bye, guys.